Hello world, this is Lisa Friedrichsen, your friend and computer science professor from Johnson County Community College. And in this short screencast, we're going to continue our series of Web 110 objective YouTubes so that you know what would be required should you want to show mastery in a course objective. And we're all the way down to number 8, create web forms using HTML and style them with CSS. When we look at the expanded outline, it asks us to create a web form, create form styles using CSS, define form input elements and other controls, and create form labels. And let's look at the result of that. I've embellished one of our course exercises with a few other form elements. So I want you to know how to code a form that includes text boxes for text, email, a phone number, a date, a number field, a drop-down list with select and option elements, radio buttons that are mutually exclusive, a checkbox, which is a yes/no question, and then a text area comments area. I'd also want you to be able to code the submit and reset buttons. Let's take a quick look at what the HTML and CSS would look like for this form. Here we are in our HTML, and the form tag opens and closes all of our form elements. I want you to know that every opening form tag has 2 required attributes: the method that the data gets sent to the web server, either POST or GET, and then the action, which is where the data gets sent. And in this case, I'm just using the example from our book and sending it to a PHP file that has been pre-developed for us. For every input box, we typically have a label and an input element to create the first name text and then the input box. And so that creates these 2 items right here on the form. The input box is sometimes called a control. I want you to know about these attributes in the input element. For example, what does the type attribute do for us? It determines the type of data that we can type into that box, whether it's text, email, a telephone, a date, or a number. I want you to know about the for and ID attributes, how the ID value always has to match the for value of the label for accessibility purposes. I want you to know the purpose of the name attribute. That's typically the field name that is sent back to the server along with the data that is typed into this box, so that that server-side script, in this case it's a PHP script, can read and understand that data that's being sent to the server. And then there are some other attributes in some of these input elements, such as the required attribute or the size or the max length, that are also interesting to know about. But type, ID, and name are critical attributes for every input box. Furthermore, I want you to know how to code a drop-down list using the select and option elements. And in this case, I don't even have my value attribute set, but that would be important for each one of these option elements. And so that's what creates our drop-down list. The value attribute is what would determine the data that is sent back to the server for the favsport field. In addition, here I have a label for favorite view and some radio buttons, and I want you to know how to code that. To code radio buttons, the name attribute has to be the same for each one of those radio buttons, because you're just showing mutually exclusive options in radio button style as opposed to drop-down list style when you code radio buttons. I always tell my students that a drop-down list and radio buttons are both wonderful controls to put on form. Users love them because they really make it fast and accurate to enter the data. The choice of radio buttons or a drop-down list is basically a matter of quantity. If you only have 2 or 3 or 5 options, then radio buttons are nice because you can see the options and it's a one-click situation. If your drop-down list is the 50 states, however, obviously you wouldn't want to put 50 radio buttons on your form. You just want to give them a drop-down list. So I want you to know how to code both of those elements on your web form. A checkbox is used to respond to a yes/no question, and a text area comments box is used to respond to a situation where you want to enter a paragraph of information. And in Chrome, it's got this really great automatic expand box on your text area element. The submit button and the reset button are also input elements, and I want you to know how to code them as well. As far as form styles, here are the styles for the form elements. I want you to know how to code a label so that the label and input box could go side by side. In this case, we're floating it left and displaying it block. We're text aligning it right so that the labels align themselves on the right versus the left. And I put a little padding in there and set the width so that they are all the same width. I'm also applying 2 styles to my input text area and select elements. And then sometimes you want to pick off a particular type of input element, just the radio buttons or just the submit button, and I want you to know how to write those selectors as well. If you can code and style a form that looks something like this, then you have mastered course objective number 8. Thank you.